I read the article in the Index Journal, and I've heard all the positive things that come from this. But obviously, around the country, there are people that are upset that they don't want a data center. Mm-hmm. And I need to hear some of the negative things that the other people are saying have happened in their communities because of a data center. And I guess one of the things I heard is the lack of our electricity going down because they're using so much of it. So can you tell us some of the negative impacts that other communities have talked about, which obviously you should be looking at, listening to other people?
Sure. I'll go over some. James and Johanna go over others. One of the main ones is his question about sound. I think sound, I would say health and sound are probably two of the biggest ones that we've heard. And I think they're obviously interrelated. So for the setbacks, we put in setbacks to keep the data centers away from residences. We have put in place sound readings. You have to have a sound plan, pre-construction and post-construction to deal with that. Light, I talked about light earlier. We put in, you have to have a plan for light. And then we have a list that I read part of the list to this gentleman of supplier requirements that you have to have before you can have a certificate of occupancy. And that deals specifically with water and electrical suppliers being able to adequately supply a facility and the rest of the public. So I would say that's three of what you would call the negatives that go with data centers, and that's how we're addressing it in our text amendment. But I'll let others speak if they feel like they need to.
You also mentioned electricity and in other places, and I'll acknowledge that in other places, I think a lot of it's related to some of what I would call massive data centers. So the most news that's out there now is about massive data centers that are on tens of thousands of acres in Midwest or western part of the United States. Not that the issues are only tied to those, but I think today's news is primarily about those. Greenwood doesn't have the capability to support a massive data center, and that's why my presentation at the council meeting was saying there's not a one size fits all. So what do we actually have the capability to support? And that's up to that large data center. So maybe hundreds of acres, but not thousands of acres or even tens of thousands of acres like these some of these others. That's not to say that a large data center still doesn't consume a large amount of electricity. For an electric powered data center, they do, but what Duke Energy's presentation told us in that public hearing was that Duke is a regulated utility company. So Duke can't commit to serve, they have a regulatory obligation to serve new customers for residential, commercial, and industrial. So a new home is built in Duke service territory, they have a regulatory obligation to serve it. Same for a new industrial facility. Like CPW, they have regular modeling and forecasting about residential, commercial, industrial growth, how Duke as a system across their electric service territory is keeping up with that demand so that they are prepared and that they have the power generation capability to support all of that new demand, which is happening across our state. Then they do a project-specific study to say on a particular tract of land with the electric transmission assets, so these are the high voltage electric lines to serve a large scale electric load. Where do those exist in proximity to the site, and how much power can Duke serve off of those lines while maintaining service to its existing customers and not limiting or constraining its future potential to serve the future customers that they will also be required to serve from a regulatory standpoint. And that regulatory body is the South Carolina Public Service Commission. And so I say that to say Duke can't make a promise to a data center that they can serve up to hundreds of megawatts at the expense of their existing electric customers or constrain themselves to serve a future company, because of the Public Service Commission, that regulatory body obligates Duke to serve those other customers. So they can't use up all of their capacity or overcommit themselves. And if they were to do that, then there are regulatory penalties for a utility company. But I would tell you that the regulatory process in place would prevent that from happening. So that no brownouts or electric outages because a data center is being served. It's not to say that we have electric outages today caused by storms or what have you. So it's not to say that won't happen after a data center like it happens today, but it won't be caused by a data center. And last point to that is actually it improves the electric grid because of the upgrades, the electric upgrades that a data center is forced to pay for 100% on their own for any of the transmission upgrades for delivery of that power. It actually enhances the reliability of the electric system on Duke's grid in the surrounding area.